Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and American air assaults on Japan. The effect of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and of a months-long firebombing campaign in 1945 against scores of Japanese cities, still resonate in Japan. Memories of those assaults by those who survived them sit in the inner sanctum of the war generation's psyche. The endurance of tradition. Consoling dead souls, practicing ancient religions, a culture of apology, the kimono. These Japanese traditions are supporting actors in this book, especially the kimono, which appears here and there, often tattered, as a powerful symbol of national identity and a metaphor for Japan's wartime experience. While this book is the product of journalistic reporting and background research, there is a personal element that ought to be noted up front. World War II affected my life directly. I am American, and my father fought in the war and proudly spoke of his service until the day he died. I am also a Jew, who grew up in a community of Holocaust survivors. All of this stoked my interest in the war years, and also made me mindful of the power of victimhood, memory, and shared suffering as I traveled around Japan. I see Japan through Jewish eyes, and that perspective is reflected in the chapters that follow. A few style points. In Japan, first and last names can be written interchangeably. Smith John is as acceptable as John Smith. In this book, however, I follow the standard English language preference of identifying characters by first names first and last names last. Second references may use first or last names depending on the tone of the narrative. Subsequent references may also contain names first or last, followed by san, a genderless honorific suffix the Japanese regularly use when speaking respectfully with others, as in Kome-san, or Saotome-san, or Robert-san. Regarding the rendering of Japanese words into English, much as I standardize name practices for American and other English language listeners, I also avoid using diacritics to indicate long vowels in the text, though linguists might protest. A point on methodology. My Japanese is not good enough to conduct serious interviews or read serious Japanese language content. However, I worked on this book alongside a crew of extraordinarily proficient and completely bilingual Japanese English language speakers, on occasion including my wife. They were my interpreters and translators and fixers and research assistants from the beginning to the end of this project, covering every single interview, phone call, and written page of Japanese along the way. They know who they are, and their assistance made this book possible. One final note. For some Americans, the Japanese experience in World War II remains a sensitive issue. As recently as 2015, 70 years after the war's end, a public opinion poll found that 29% of Americans thought Japan had not apologized sufficiently for its wartime actions. Among older Americans, that figure was 50%. I once produced a human interest story from Tokyo for NPR about a Japanese soldier, a POW, who had suffered greatly in the war, but who had, with intelligence and good humor, turned his life around in the post-war years. The piece aired on Pearl Harbor Day. Some listeners responded with hostility, arguing that Japan had started the conflict and killed and tortured countless Americans. So who cares about a Japanese POW, especially on Pearl Harbor Day? Why don't you focus on our side, they said, on the men who died on December 7, 1941, and on the soldiers who fought with your father. Reporting from the other side of my father's war does not, in my view, diminish American suffering, and telling stories about individual Japanese who built post-war lives on the back of wartime trauma does not downplay the wartime sacrifice or heroism of Americans. It simply informs, humanizes, and hopefully holds your interest and attention. Introduction. The backstory. My father was a soldier in George S. Patton's Army, European Theater, World War II. Dad was a corporal, military policeman, born hard-edged and by disposition stubborn. My father-in-law